I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Attorney Jackwood?
Here?
Attorney Bennett?
Here.
Clerk Bailey here.
There being a quorum sufficient to do business, after the roll call, one of the agendas that we will be going through today will touch on these main issues, which are candidate filings, discussions of the upcoming primary, and other items related to the election that have to do with workers and resolutions that are needed to use our new equipment, our new electronic poll books, and our new centralized counter. That being the case, we'd like to start with welcoming you. Please introduce yourself, as we call on you. To my left, and your right, is our new attorney, Monica Conrad, and we give her a hearty welcome and ask if you could just give us a few words about who you are and what your practice centralizes in.
Sure. I'm Monica Conrad. I'm with the law firm of Lewis and Kappas, and I have been a Porter County resident since about 1989, I believe, and have lived in Porter County since that point in time. And my husband's been from Porter County for much longer than I have, but 3 children who have soon to be departing Porter County for college opportunities. I also practice in the area of just looking at municipal law and school law, which kind of overlaps a lot with what we do here with the election board. So I am excited to be a part of all of you guys, and I wish Ethan Lowe the best as he goes into a different job opportunity, and I know he has served this board very well, and he's kind of assured me that for things that we need to transition with, we will continue to transition some of those things. So he's got some documents and things that he's got, and we're going to work on getting those transitions. So I met with him today to kind of work through some of those transitional issues.
And we hope we are to meet with you. We have previously received minutes, and our new clerk has done a Udo person's job, and we've been presented with the minutes from August 9th, 2017 through January 29th, 2019, and the President would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as typed and distributed.
That's second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. By unanimous vote, those minutes are now approved and lodged in the official records of the election board. In terms of candidate filings, I would like to first address an issue that has to do with being tardy. Is we have laws concerning any candidate who runs filing campaign reports by a certain deadline and a certain date. One of those deadlines has passed some time ago, which is end-of-year reports, and we've had some reports in the newspaper about who these folks are, and rather than go through it, we have both Democrats and Republicans. Am I correct? And Madam Clerk, could you indicate whether you have had the ability to come up with a finalized list of the offenders at this point?
Yeah, we have, in your packet that I just handed out in the paper clip is the current outstanding campaign finance report. It's as of this afternoon.
Now, the court at this point, the President at this point would indicate that based upon this list, that it would be my recommendation that we impose an automatic fine under the statute of approximately $50 per day against everyone who has violated the deadlines. How do other members of the board feel about that?
I'll speak to that if you don't mind. I know in the past, the board, we've taken an approach of following the Administrative Procedures Act of providing notice to the individuals, in this case, the list of individuals that haven't complied with the campaign reporting requirement. First, send them a letter telling that they are delinquent. If they fail to respond timely, then we go ahead and request that they appear at the hearing. And at that point, if they fail to appear at the hearing, then at that point we assess the fine, turn it over to the county attorney for prosecution, and that's kind of the practice that we had adopted previously. That was actually proposed by our current president, Mr. Stankiewicz, and it was supported. So I think that's a best practice. I think that's a fair way of doing it. We don't know if there's a personal issue that could have, delayed a candidate from filing their documents, or there's a multitude of reasons. Now, it doesn't excuse it, but I think at the same time, I think the election board shouldn't take the practice of discouraging people from coming forward and running as a candidate. So that would be my suggestion going forward. We would follow our previous practice of providing notice, giving them an opportunity to be heard, and having an opportunity for them to correct that issue.
Madam Clerk?
I would be in favor of that. I have a feeling there's some people that assume that when they're done running for office that their committees are automatically disbanded, even though that's not the case, because some of these individuals are 2 years in a row filing. And so that would be quite a hefty fine dating back to 2017.
And Attorney Conrad, for the board, are we empowered to continue to give this, do we have room to give this 30-day notice?
What I understand in the transition from Mr. Lowe to myself is that this board had previously adopted procedures with regard to reporting and how we were going to do follow-up to campaign finance. He is going to be transferring that to me. I think we need to probably take a look at that and make sure that we are following what we've already adopted in that. It's my understanding that there is to be a notice sent out, and this is from what I've got from him verbally without having had the opportunity to review that yet, that a notice would have to be sent out, and we would follow that process that's set out in that. But I do think that in terms of the reporting requirements, that the reporting requirements are pretty much mandated by statute, and I'm not sure that those are necessarily discretionary.
In terms of the list it's entitled 2019 Outstanding Campaign Finance Reports, am I correct, Madam Clerk? The President would then entertain a motion from the board regarding continuing with a 30-day drop-dead notice. Cadard Taylor?
Yeah. I think it's an excellent idea to continue with 30-day notice. One of the things, having worked over several counties, and with the state, one of the things is other counties in the state send out notice prior to the actual date the reports are due. For example, today, when I went to the post office box, I got an envelope in the post office box from the state because the Porter County Republican report is due on March 1st. Okay? We file it with the state. And they send an envelope with the actual forms in it as a reminder in advance of the due date. Same thing occurs in Lake County to all the people that are due reports. They send out a postcard reminding that the report is due. That's kind of a gentle kick in the butt to the candidates or the non-candidates that they have reports that are due annually. I think that, as part of this 30-day extension, as you're starting to look towards fines, that would be one thing to also add in for April and October, sending out notices in advance. That is kind of a reminder, because I know I work with a lot of candidates, and most of them, that's probably the least part of on their mind, they're out there trying to win the election, and the campaign finance reports are very important. I don't want to downgrade them at all. They're very, very important. But a gentle reminder in advance would be helpful, and maybe can help in the future as well as pointing it out. And as you institute fines, when you start instituting the fines, it says you can institute a fine of up to $50 a day up to $1,000. Lake County, I know, does not impose the total fine to start out with. The state does not either. They start out with imposing, the first time you violate, 25% of the fine, the second time, 50%, the third time, 75%, and the fourth time, and thereafter, they do the full $50 a day.
Does it make a difference if there is a sitting veteran politician who still is delinquent?
If they keep being delinquent,
Yes.
they get up to 100%. And once they've been delinquent 4 times, they're up to 100%, and they keep on going, they immediately start running.
And should it matter what position they hold?
No,
Okay.
it doesn't, in either one of those two locations that I've worked with in the past on this, it does not matter whether it be a city politician, a district committee, a political PAC, or what type of organization it is. You're going to get fined regardless. One I've got a just a problem with is a school board referendum over in Lake County that has their records all messed up, and they've asked me to help straighten out those records and get them back because they haven't filed in the last 2 years. So it's not only politicians, it's other groups.
Is there any more comments? Yes, ma'am.
I was only saying positive that in 2016, I believe we did do the notice first, and every candidate complied right away.
So the notice works?
It did work last time we invested. Now, we do have 17 annuals outstanding. I want to say in 16 we sent out the notice. But it was very effective.
Board will entertain any other comments. Board will entertain a second of its motion to allow the 30-day pre-notice before imposing fines.
Second.
All in favor?
And that's what Monica's going to research
Mhm.
to make sure we're still
In
consistent.
compliance.
Yeah, with previous.
Yeah.
But we will not impose anything today, is the
Correct.
motion is to at least give 30 days.
I agree.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next matter coming up on the situation of candidate filings, we are going to defer since it is going to take a lot of time compared to other items we can get through. And that has to do with the matter of Hallman, am I pronouncing your name correctly? Which is, there is a challenge regarding the Portage Democrat 4th District seat on the City Council. And who is present to speak on behalf of or against that challenge? Jeff Chittister, in your name, sir? Brian Gully, and are you the challenger? And you are, sir?
I'm the candidate to follow.
And you're Mr. Hallman? All right. If you could just stand down for a second, let me go on to the next matter, which is discussion of the primary, and I have before me 3 resolutions in order to timely, hopefully, meet some requirements under the law on the upcoming municipal elections. The first resolution is titled Authorization for Use of Electronic Poll Books and for the Centralized Count of Absentee Ballots. The second resolution is for documentation of poll worker qualifications that basically authorizes us in proper form to employ 16 to 17-year-olds to work as election workers as part of both educational and shortage of workers under a state statute, Title III, that allows that. It has many, many conditions on it, one of which is a grade average of 3.0 on a 4.0 scale. So you'll also need the written approval of a parent to do this as part of the statutory requirements. The third resolution allows inspectors to operate on what's called shared locations, where there's more than one precinct involved in a physical site, and they're running back and forth doing almost a double job. And it authorizes that there can be extra pay for that type of shared precinct job. Otherwise, it's kind of unfair to workers where we could load them up with double, triple, fourple precincts down the road, and they'd get the same pay as if only one precinct were involved. Those resolutions are proposed by myself as the drafter of one. The other resolutions are proposed by our Honorable Madam Clerk, and I would appreciate, is there any discussion of either of these resolutions by the board members? There being no discussions by the board members, I would entertain a motion regarding approval of these three resolutions at this meeting.
I'd make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-, we'll call it 01, for the approval of the use of electronic ESS poll books and the centralization count of absentee ballots for the centralized count machine, basically.
Second? Or
We
you
have-
wanna keep going?
No, we have a second. We have a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You want to pass down to me, and then we'll make them sit.
That's right, it ends up with her. And whenever you're ready.
Here, you go. I don't have it on thread.
Thank you. I don't know what I've done with
Yeah,
mine.
this one's not working.
Okay.
An attorney without a pen.
No,
Each time you try to act like you know what you're doing,
Yep.
you can't find a pen.
David's offering his.
Oh, okay. Nice pen.
Isn't it nice? All right. I'll also then motion to approve resolution we'll call 2019-02 regarding the employment of 16 and 17-year-olds as poll workers.
All in favor?
Oh, need a second.
I'm sorry, I
Is there a
need a second. Is there a second?
Second.
There being a second, matter is put to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous vote being taken, none against. The resolution passes. You can do it. You're ahead of me.
There's that. And I'll make a motion to approve resolution we'll call 2019-03 regarding the shared location inspectors.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Then, if I could, Madam Clerk, do you have signed copies of the three resolutions for your minutes? Okay.
She does.
The housekeeping being taken under consideration and resolved to some extent, we next hit the issue on the primary, which is we have contested races, very limited, in basically 3 cities. Am I correct, Madam Clerk?
I believe it's 4.
4?
Yep, Chesterton, Hebron, Portage, and Valpo.
We also have, has it been confirmed whether we have a referendum, a school referendum?
Nothing has been filed.
All right, so nothing's been filed.
We are preparing for it, but nothing's been filed.
All right. So with the time frames involved under state law, where we're running short and where we've got to make some decisions, is do we want to keep open early voting sites, even though there's no contested races in that area? Now, what we've done in the past was to have the clerk issue a letter to those areas to say, if you want to still hold an election, it's on your dime. You have, we need to be reimbursed for those elections that you're going to hold. In this case, what's the pleasure and discussion of the board members regarding that?
The only place that we've drawn up that may not need a primary would be Pleasant, and we haven't heard that they are interested in having one. They don't have any contestants, but everyone else, with the possible referendum, would need to be open. Now, if there is not a referendum filed, we're thinking that there might be one. That would change a whole lot of things.
Now, my calculation is if we notify these vacant areas, and they would respond in writing on or before May 7th that they don't want to hold an election, okay, no harm there. No money's incurred, no election expense is involved, and there's no reason to have that separate site. On the other hand, if they do not opt out, then it seems to me that the obligation to pay for that election, as before, as we've done in the past, is going to be reimbursed to us by that municipality. Does that make sense to the board as to how we've operated in the past?
Are you talking about early vote sites, or are we talking about the actual primary election
We're talking
day?
about both.
Okay.
Yeah. In other words, if there's no contested races in that voting site area, there's really no reason to put forth all of our efforts.
The only place, if there is a referendum in Duneland schools, the only place that would not have a contested primary and would be able to be closed would be Cout.
Okay.
Everywhere, Burns Harbor, even though they don't have a contested race, they are the Duneland School District, so they would need to be open. Same thing with Pines, all of the rest of them. The only one in question would be Cout.
Okay, and it would be the Couts area then that we'd be working with our attorney and Madam Clerk to be sending them a letter. Do they want to opt out? Because if not, they're going to reimburse our board for the cost of maintaining that election site. Any comment? Yes, ma'am.
You said that they had to send something in writing. You said May 7th. Is that the correct date, or is it March 7th?
May 7th appears to be I'm sorry, did I say May 7th? March 7th. Sorry.
That's okay, I just want to...
Excuse me, it's a little close. Yeah, that would be cutting it too close. I'm sorry. I misspoke. All right.
Do you want to go back to
What are we, Madam Clerk, what is your position on early voting sites at this time?
I would, if we're going to go based on the locations that were used in the last election, I would suggest closing Union Township because they're not on the ballot, and go ahead and keeping Chesterton, Hebron, Portage, and Valpo open in the same locations with the exception of Portage.
All right. And do we notify the powers that be in those areas that we will not be having a voting site?
Are we on early voting, or are we
Early.
on?
Early.
It just has to be approved before.
All right.
It has to be unanimous.
The one in question is that the Portage location was at the North Government Complex, that is under a lot of construction. The parking lot is absolutely horrible. In my email, I suggested one location. That doesn't seem to be favorable, and everybody's speaking with commissioners and such. And so I would propose moving the early voting site in Portage to the Portage High School Food Service Building, which is separate than the high school. It's on the same grounds as the high school, but it is a separate building, so we wouldn't have any contact with students that way.
Any discussion from voters in the audience or persons who live in Portage concerning that fact? Okay.
I would have a question, though, for council. I think for the early vote sites, I believe we have to have one of them, has to be in a clerk's office.
Clerk's office.
Correct.
So if we remove it from the Portage North location, then we're probably going to have to change the Valparaiso location from the admin to the courthouse.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
And
Be compliant?
and again, this was kind of in my transitioning some things with Mr. Lowe. Mr. Lowe said that one of the things that he has, the reason that they've done the Portage courthouse is because the clerk's office being at the courthouse in Valpo, and that's an annex of the courthouse, that's why they use the Portage courthouse, okay? And that's the one that would be designated by the court clerk, which would be Ms. Bailey. And the rest of them are discretionary by the board. So,
The concern is that it's difficult for those that work there on a daily basis. Portage is one of the heaviest early vote locations.
mhm.
To add more traffic there, I just don't know that the parking lot can handle it.
So you can
Okay.
choose either one.
So then that what it's going to do is it's going to cause the early voting to be at
The
the
Valpo courthouse?
at the Valpo courthouse instead of here at this building. Okay? And then so we're going to have to kind of, if that's what's going to happen, then we'll have to kind of think through where that's going to take place at the courthouse.
Okay. And this is pretty much just food for thought. It has to go before the commissioners as well before anything is finalized, at least from my speaking with them. They have to give final approval.
Do we have time to resolve that by, during the March meeting,
Then they-
or is it too late?
I'm not sure on the answer to that.
Yeah, they don't. But
Do we-
it's your choice on the clerk's.
Do we have time to resolve that by the March meeting?
I would defer.
Yeah.
See, I guess what I'm worried about is if you're going to move the Portage location, the voters are still going to show up there
Mm-hmm.
unless you notify each and every one, and then you're going to have another Karen Martin election, is what it's going to amount to, and we're going to have a problem. So I don't know what else to do.
My concern is whether or not,
You move the Portage one.
Right.
And you're also gonna have to move the Valpo.
that's
Right,
correct.
and that's.
So you're
Correct.
actually
Making
moving
two.
locations,
Mm-hmm.
and that is gonna cause a huge confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can talk to the commissioners and see if there's another way they can adjust the parking,
Right.
but
You've
it's,
got the metal detector, you're gonna turn voters off 7 ways to Sunday. I think
the metal detector's already done at Portage.
Pardon?
There's already a metal detector and screening that they have.
No,
to
he's
do at
saying the
Portage.
opposite.
In Valpo, you're gonna turn it around.
The courts are there.
Right, but then Portage wouldn't have one. So there's still one with a metal detector and one without a metal detector,
I think,
either way.
I think that getting into, and David, JJ, you might know this, but I think that it's probably less congestion getting through the metal detectors at Portage than it is at Valpo.
And I
Oh,
agree.
Yeah.
I
I
agree with
think
that.
so, you get less traffic there.
Yeah, you got much less traffic. Mhm. I mean, any given day trying to get to the metal detectors at Valpo.
Parking for the people who work there.
Mhm.
If you have to park out by the road,
I think
are you going to walk all the way up?
I think it'd be done with their construction by election day. Or, well, actually, April 6th or whatever, I think, believe it is, we start early voting.
They will not be done with construction.
You know, in regards to this, there's members of the press here. Do we have the Times and the Post-Tribune or the Chesterton? You know, we've always been light on your newspapers advising voters of changes.
Mhm.
Are you going to do anything different, or do you just give this little blib about a week before the election?
I'm sure it's about all the time.
Thanks.
We can put it on the front page, circle it in red, so 50% of the people will say they never saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it
I
repeated?
mean, I hate
Yeah.
to say that you can't depend on us, but I've been doing this for 40 years. Believe me, you don't know how many calls I get saying, I never saw that in the paper. Well,
Mhm.
it ran on the front page. People do. They either don't see it or it doesn't say here, the number or whatever. I would say that you 100% reliability could get in either on the free paper, even if you could put it in multiple times, that everybody would read it. And then not everybody is aware of one or all of our papers.
What would be your recommendation? If that's the case and people don't remember printed notices, what would be your recommendation to solve that?
I think to directly contact them maybe via postcard, saying you voted here last year, just to let you know, planning on voting here last year. Direct mail.
Okay. Would it help to indicate at least a general notice in the editorial section, or they don't even read that?
Well, certainly really, but, you know, I can't guarantee, to be honest with you, sir, I can't guarantee if it will be included in the spray or when or where it will be placed, that's above and beyond our. I think I'm telling you that I'll write you something up and put it in the paper, but this is, September, you're gonna have to handle that, and if one other person decides they're not gonna run it, I can't make you, I personally can't make you wrong.
What's puzzling is Mark Chase has written maybe 9 articles about the election. Are they not reading that too, or is that a different story when you do it? Could you talk to Mark Chase, instead of criticizing the election board, could he resolve the problem you're talking about, which is no one reads the newspaper? Okay, fair enough, fair. Fair.
Oh, he said it should be done by
But there are going to be some people who are doing it, some people who don't see it. Many people only look at this online edition. I can't guarantee that everybody who gets the word out by using all three or any one of them. Even if Mark wrote it.
Then we may move. Yeah, we may move.
I'll make you a bet for $5 that if your headline simply ran, voting places have changed, they'd read it.
So wherever you're.
I would make you a $5 bet.
If they read the newspaper.
Yeah, but you're our only hope. I agree. Thank you for humoring us. Okay. All right. Turning to, we have a report from Madam Clerk, who's done a real person's job. Could you just give us a quick summary of how far along you've come with the purchase and installation of the new equipment?
All of the equipment has been delivered with the exception of the e-poll books, and those will be here, I believe, next week. But everything has been delivered, it is being assembled, and it will be, it'll be moved to its permanent location, which is at this building on Tuesday.
You've done an excellent job. I saw the trucks assembling, and So we're entering the 20th century with electronic poll books as opposed to handwritten. But the irony is the state of Indiana still does not certify voting tabs that do not have a paper trail. So we can talk about entering the modern age, but without paper trail, they're asking for a lot of problems. So most of the certified equipment has to have paper verification. So you're not quite out of old school here, and it's not going to be the case. Can we turn to one other issue, which is to resolve the early voting sites? How many are we going to have? Where are they going to be located?
I think we need to start with the clerk's location first,
Mhm.
All right?
because that's going to decide which part of the county.
Yep.
I have a meeting with Scott McClure next week, and that's over about the construction going on in Portage. So until I find out where they're going to be, and if there's, I'm going to ask if there's anything they can do about parking. So I don't have a location yet. Until after next week.
It's as good as we're going to get it temporarily. All right?
Yeah, we'll have to address the issue at our next meeting then. We're running out of time.
Yeah, we're running out of time, so we'll raise it at our next meeting after we get more facts. Yes, sir?
I worked on election day at the Porter County election site, which was the early voting site. And because of that, we had dozens of people show up there thinking that was their election place. And so I would just advise that if you're going to change 2 early voting locations, this is going to cause a lot of chaos. So I would be very confident that it has to be done before you do it. Like I said, we probably had 40, 50 people. I mean,
Yes, sir.
I was on the phone all day finding people right places to vote.
Mhm.
They thought they were just, heard that that's where you're going to vote, so that's where they're going to vote.
Yep.
Yeah.
People tend
Yeah,
to
it's
know
not
where-
rocket scientist, it's like going to work once every 2 years at most. You think you'd have it controlled.
For the early voting sites you have for the primary, is that the only ones you can have for the general election?
Correct.
So if you close one early voting site for the primary, if there's no primary, does that mean you can't have an early voting site there for the general election?
They don't, we're talking
Yeah,
about Union, yes, but we're talking about Union Township, and
Yeah.
they're not involved in the election in 2019 at all.
Oh, they're not, they don't have, because of they're not
Right, it's
It's
city and
municipal.
town.
municipal, so,
Right.
okay. Okay, thank you.
So it appears on the report, which I would ask to be made part of our minutes, do I understand right that the 2-page document, 2019 municipal primary elections, indicate currently 46 locations and 60 election boards?
Correct.
And that 2-page summary is what exists now as to what we expect to be the case on the primary election day.
Yes, it's proposed for 2019.
And I would move, I don't think I need a formal motion, can we make this part of our minutes? Is there any objection to that?
I have no objection.
Okay. With that, and prior to moving to a challenge regarding one of the candidates, go ahead.
I think we should, I don't want to push the issue, but I think it's correct as the audience has stated, and if we move that early voting location from Portage, as much as it's a difficulty to get in the building, I think it would cause more trouble of taking it out of the north building, even though it's not in its best state for the primary. It's supposed to be completed by the fall.
Mhm.
That's what they keep telling us,
Right.
that it should be up to snuff for November. I think it'd be best if we continue as the early voting location for the clerk's office. If the clerk agrees, that would then give us our Portage location, so we don't disrupt that location. That would then, we could also then keep this building as our Valparaiso location, so we don't disrupt them either. I think they're going to play with each other. If we move one, it's going to cause this one to change. So I know it's not the best choice, but I think we'd rather have early voting than not have early voting, regardless of the construction and the difficulty in the building. I think that would be best that we let the clerk
Attorney
It's an
Bangs,
agreement that we,
yeah.
we allow that north location to be used anyway as our early vote location.
Attorney Bangs, do I understand that to be a motion?
I do. I'd like to place that as a motion if I can get a second.
Looking for a second? I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So,
Motion passed unanimously. We will stay with the Portage current site to avoid the confusion that appears to be
so
huge when we change a voting site.
So it's-
And thank you for your comments from the Times Reporter. Appreciate it.
So I would make a motion to start then, we'll go through the early voting locations. Motion to approve the Portage North Government Building as our early voting site for Portage, as also it'd be deemed the clerk's choice location as well.
Mhm.
Second that?
All
All
in
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd motioned for the county admin building to be the Valparaiso location for early voting site.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'd also motion for Chesterton, we use Town Hall, correct?
Mhm.
Town Hall.
Chesterton Town Hall is our Chesterton location for early voting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then I'd also do a motion for Hebron to be used as our fourth location for early voting, the Hebron Community Center.
Second? We've got a dual second, so is that like a fourple? Is that a fourth? It's a fourth. All in favor? Aye.
And that would be all the early voting sites.
And that cements them at this time. That's
Yes.
very good, very good. Is there any, we would normally have a 5 to 10 minute after we close off our regular formal meeting for the public or the press to ask any questions of us in turn, under our new agenda. But we're about to turn to a hearing having to do with the voter challenge. A hand went up before I got this far. Kennard?
Yeah, I have a question. If I remember correctly, the early voting places in the primary are the same as what they're going to be in the fall.
Correct.
Yes.
Now you left, okay, never mind.
All right. All right. So if there are no questions to put ahead of this from the audience or the press, there's no complaints right now, we're moving to try to resolve, and I'll explain why we're going to do this in perfunctory form, is we need to print the ballots, and the ballots contain names, and we have a challenge to one candidate. That candidate is here. His name is Mr. Hallman. He's present. If you could come up at the table, sir. And we have the challenger against his candidacy, Mr. Galley. Did I misspeak it?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Could you say it again? That's right. If you could please come up and take a seat opposing. Okay, what we have before us in paper form, and I wanted to make sure, Madam Clerk and Attorney Bangs, do you have copies of the exhibits involved with this challenge and the filing of candidacy?
Yep. Yeah, I believe so. I think I printed and brought it. Here it is.
To set the record, and to make this precisely formal, since you're dealing with voting rights, could you each raise your hand so I could administer the oath? Do you promise, under pains and penalties of perjury, to swear the truth concerning the statement you're about to give at this formal hearing regarding a challenge to eligibility of the respondent, in this case, Mr. Hallman, running as a Democrat in the 4th District of the Portage City Council? and also as a challenger that you would do the same. If that's true, please say I do. Okay. You promise to tell the truth, only the truth, so help you God. Okay, please consider yourself under oath regarding the statements, and I will try to follow a shortened view of the Administrative Adjudication Act to resolve this. Do you have any questions about what's about to happen? I'll just explain it shortly. We're going to hear from the challenger who's bringing the challenge, the basis, and what they personally know about the situation and why they're making the challenge. We will then turn to the respondent, the person who's filed for the office, Mr. Hallman, and the board will then, after hearing the evidence, attempt to make a decision about this challenge. Do you have an objection to proceeding without counsel? Okay. Do you feel you're fully prepared to go forward today? Okay.
Yes.
All right. The only thing that we may have is we understand that this is under the Administrative Adjudication Act, rules and regulations of procedure, which allows for some hearsay. Hearsay meaning you can't go out 3 deep as to what your aunt said about this, but we're not going to hold you to strict evidentiary rules. Could you begin, sir?
Okay.
Explain to us why you've made the challenge and your standing and who you are.
Okay. As a resident of the 4th District, the 2019 Candidate Guide for Elections on page 9 stipulates that you must belong to the party that you seek to represent in the primary, and it gives 2 ways to prove that, and one is the last primary, which ballot did you request, and I've provided Mr. Holmes' voting record, and last year the primary you requested a Republican ballot, and then the other way to prove which political party you're affiliated with would be a declaration of candidacy, or if you filed a certification from the county chair, which I'm not aware of whether he has or not. I'm sure if he had filed that, you guys would have that. But that's everything to my knowledge of where we stand.
Okay, and for the record, we have the county chair in the audience, Jeff Chittister. Mr. Hallman, your response?
No, I prepared a statement that I'd like to read if it's okay.
Sure.
My words might slow a little bit. I had went through some health problems a few years ago that I'm blessed to be walking and talking.
Great.
My name is Robert Holman. I'm a lifetime resident of the city of Portage. I purchased the house I live in, was raised in from a family member. I come from a family of union steel workers and have always represented myself as a lifetime registered Democrat. I have voted Republican a couple of times in my life due to either knowing somebody personally on the ballot or being frustrated by the lack of leadership by elected officials turning blind eyes to problems within my jurisdiction. I was always led to believe until now my vote was always secret, sacred, and confidential, and never would or could be held against me. Had I known this to be not true, I would have never had received a Republican ballot. I feel as if my forefathers have failed me by leading me to believe my voting record was unrecorded and could never be held against me. I feel like I'm a victim like voters in third world countries are. To keep me off the ballot for an election is un-American. Most people still believe their vote is secret. Our society teaches our children this and makes children believe this. I'm running for Portage Council, 4th District, to bring change, responsibility, and accountability back to a tarnished community, and to make Portage a better place for my lifetime friends, neighbors, and relatives. I would hope you would consider retaining my name on the Democratic Party ballot so that I can have an opportunity to represent a community and a Democratic Party that I have a lifetime invested in. I would really like an opportunity to bring positive changes to our community for the right reasons.
Now, Mr. Hallman, we have been presented internal records that would indicate in 2018 general election you voted as a Republican.
No, it was in the primary.
I'm sorry, primary as a Republican. If I may, can I,
I've received a copy of that.
okay, it was attached, I believe, to the challenge that was filed as an exhibit, and there's no absolute sin, and no one's trying to knock out your vote. We're stuck ourselves with taking an oath to follow the law.
I think
That's
the
where-
law is charged, but that's to take up with the Supreme Court, not with you.
And that's, I think, where I'm headed. As much as I may believe in what you're saying about the absolute right to vote without party allegiance, what's happening here is we have a state election board. The state election board goes before the legislature, and it's called Title III, the election code, okay? So that's what we're following. And are you denying that our records in any way are incorrect as to your prior voting record?
No, I'm not denying it, no, because I don't keep records.
Okay.
You know, and I would like to know if the clerk's office would keep records for my parties or my group that I put together on taxpayer expense.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for coming. Can I now, in the audience, you've indicated is Jeff Chittister, known to me as the county chairperson. Could you, Jeff Chittister, come forward? There's, not at the table, but perhaps at the seat over there. Do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Could you tell us your name?
Jeffrey Chittister, 487 West 700 North, Alfredo, Indiana.
And do you hold any official offices with the Democratic Party of Porter County, Indiana?
I am currently the Democratic Chair.
And how long have you held that office?
Since about 2007.
Okay. Now, at any time, Mr. Hallman's appeared here and made his statement. Has he ever come to you to ask you to consent to his running as a Democrat?
No, he did not.
All right. And are you waiving that right to not consent, or are you saying you are in support of the challenge?
I'm in support of the challenge.
All right. Okay, turning back to you for rebuttal, and then I'll turn this over to the board for questioning in a minute. Do you have any rebuttal, sir, to what you've heard prior stated by any of the witnesses?
No.
Do you, Mr. Hallman, have any rebuttal to anything stated by any of the witnesses?
Yes. I appealed to you, Mr. Chittister. I made a phone call to you, and you called me back yesterday morning. And in so many words, you told me that you could not consent to me being on the ballot prior to this hearing.
Correct.
Okay.
And do you have any further statements to make after hearing that rebuttal?
No.
Is there anything to add? Okay, with that, I would like to turn this over to any member of the board who has questions concerning the evidence we've heard.
I just had a question, Mr. Hallman. I wanted to verify your address. You listed on your candidacy form as 3017 Wood Street,
Portage, Indiana.
Portage,
Correct.
and your birthday is April...
4361.
All right. I just wanted to verify that just for the voting record that was provided on the challenge form to make sure it was accurate. Thank you.
We would normally perhaps have better procedures for hearing this, but with the election being right around the corner, as president, I'm going to ask for, put the matter up for a vote either in favor or against the challenge to the candidacy of Mr. Holman on the current ballot? All in favor of supporting the challenge, please say aye.
I'm going to say aye, and I'll explain why. The presumption for your party candidacy is based on your last primary designation. So since you voted Republican in the last primary, there is a presumption that you are considered a Republican, which is why Mr. Stankiewicz had asked Mr. Chittister if he was going to, quote-unquote, vouch for you that you are considered. Sure, you can.
The Democratic Party claims that I'm a Republican. The Republican Party for the last 8 years has claimed me to be a Democrat, yes. So what party affiliation am I? You know, the Democrats don't want me and the Republicans don't want me. So I feel like I'm being disenfranchised. I've always represented myself as a lifetime Democrat, but I guess that doesn't matter at these proceedings. I've never registered as a Republican. When I took that Republican ballot, when I went and voted, they never told me that it would change my party affiliation.
Yeah, once you
disclaimer made.
Yeah, once you chose the primary ballot for Republican.
Why is that not made public when you do that?
What's not made public? I'm not sure.
Why doesn't the person in the ballot, where you go cast your ballot, tell you that if you take a Republican ballot, that makes you a Republican?
Well, that's the indication in the primaries that if you're selecting between a Democrat or Republican ballot, you're making the choice as to how you are declaring which party that you're supporting. So you're making the choice.
Clear.
But you're making that choice as soon as you pick one ballot or the other.
Yeah, Mr. Banks, I think there's two separate questions. Is his candidacy as part of the party as opposed to his affiliation with the party? Those are two separate things here, and I think that's creating confusion.
Okay.
One of the questions I would just read to you is, on your declaration of candidacy, sort of in the middle of the page of that declaration, it reads, I meet the requirement to be affiliated with the political party indicated because, and then it reads, and you've checked off, the most recent primary election in Indiana in which I voted was the primary held by the party with which I now claim affiliation. So it wasn't the Democratic Party, it was the Republican Party, and that's where everything starts going south.
Okay.
So whether it's the fine print, Mr. Holman, whether it's a memory problem or whatever, that's why they provide a backup, which is go to the county chairman to see if the county chairman will go along with a waiver or a consent. In this case, unfortunately, Mr. Chittister called you and said, sorry, can't do it. So with that, we have one aye. Aye. So, and I would also vote aye, and I apologize to you for all of the confusion, and thank you for coming today and sitting through this whole election. I thought that this would be a better way to do it. And I'm sorry that we confuse you as a voter. We'll try to do better next time and hope you won't give up on the election board.
Well, I feel disenfranchised, I'll tell you that.
And I understand how you feel, but we have to follow the law, sir.
So again, my belief is that the law is tarnished. There's nowhere in this country should my vote be recorded, or my beliefs.
Okay. And you have good beliefs, sir, and I want to thank you for showing up. And I'm sorry we can't do more for you except to follow the law. But thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
You need
All right.
to clarify that that's not recorded for the general election. It's only recorded for
Yeah.
the primary.
Yeah.
We're good.
Well, I guess I'm better off just not voting at all. The
Well, that's
Democrats
your-
don't want me, and the Republicans don't want me. So you know what? I don't want them either.
Well, we hope you change your mind, and we hope you vote, sir.
I'll never vote a primary again, I'll guarantee you, in my life.
Okay. Thank you for coming, Mr. Holman. With that, the chair would indicate, would like a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. I don't think there's any other business. Did you have anything else?
There's no other business to come before us. With that, based on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Election Board meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
I feel bad.